What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 327. My name's Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts. And as always, I'm joined by
Ron.
And John.
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. Good to see you. It's been a while. It's been a while since
It's been
we've
a
been on
couple
here,
weeks, man.
Yeah.
A couple weeks.
It's one of those times where it's like an accidental while, but I think around this time of year, this is at least a natural time. This is when a lot of people are pausing and dealing with shit. So
Yeah.
well, it's been about 3 weeks now, I guess. Three
weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks. Just cruised right through the holiday season.
Yeah.
And,
We're back. We're back in it. We're back
jump
in
back
it.
into the new year.
Yeah. I wanted to shout you out for something, Steve.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. You've helped me discover quite a few things. One of them is Facebook Marketplace.
Oh, yeah.
So I was trying to get a sound bar in my living room because I wanted to take the living room sound bar, put it in the bedroom so we had better sound. And it came with a little subwoofer. It's the one we used in our previous house we were renting. And I was like, man, I want to get a cool ass sound bar that I could buy that kind of is not quite like my downstairs setup, but really good. Mm-hmm. Boy, did I get lucky.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I was looking. There was this place. So distance from my house. So Cumberland. It was in Cumberland. I bought a Vizio Elevate. Right?
Nice.
Have you seen those things?
Yep.
You know how much it costs, right? $460.
Wow.
Brand new.
Wow.
And it's because of you.
And they normally cost $462, $463.
You're right.
Yeah.
Plus $600.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. So I'm like, is this a real price? They're like, yeah, we were in like a liquidation thing. Come see it. You could touch it. I drove. So you've driven to Cumberland. Have you guys driven to Cumberland before?
I think so.
It's mountainous. It's mountainous.
Yeah.
It's like when you start to get into the craziness of like Pennsylvania, and it's mountains. Like your signal's going out basically, right? So I get there and I'm like, this is strange. Like, what if this is like open and it was brand new, hasn't been open, and I watched like 10 reviews of it. I'm like, I'm never going to be able to get this. This is $1,000. It's too much money. And God, because of you, Steve.
It's always worth a shot. Just check it out.
Why not? Go see it.
I feel like the biggest ticket like tech that I have in my house in most cases, I feel like I've gotten it on Facebook Marketplace for like a stupid price.
Unreal.
Yeah.
So I have one more thing that I'm trying to get. It is so like kiddish of me. I want to get an arcade game, like an arcade, like not like
cabinet?
a full size one, like not a full size
I
cabinet.
thought you were going to say a race car bed.
No,
Sweet bed.
I want to get one of those like arcade one ups, like just a miniature arcade, maybe 2 of those before I turn 45.
Because then then you're too old. Then it's like
Right. I have to.
They won't let you buy it.
No, they
When
Right.
you turn that age.
They'll slap it out of your hand, even though this thing's
that's when
kind
they
of.
say, "Sir, we believe you need a brandy snifter and like a smoking jacket,
Right.
or an
right.
axe, something
Right.
either gentlemanly or just manly." At that point,
Right.
you can't.
So I have to buy it before I get past the threshold of like, hey, guy, what the fuck are you doing?
no
so-
boyish shit after.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, it's good to hear that
Very
you guys
cool.
are doing well, man.
Yeah, man. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah. So what have you been
Lots,
watching?
A lot's happened, man. There's
Yes.
been a lot of stuff coming out. And
Holy shit, yes.
it's
Any
like that
new-
weird. It's like that weird time where like a lot has come out and like movies that just met the end of the year, like release cutoff for like Oscars and all these awards considerations.
Yeah.
Like they've done their little like 1-2 theater plays, and now we're in like the week 2-3 of the year, and like more of them are going to start rolling out now. And they're smaller movies, most of them, and I'm looking forward to. I haven't seen a ton, to be honest with you. There's a lot going on, but like, looking at what's available, it's like I'm noticing there's a lot of those titles that are starting to pepper in.
Yes.
Even in some of the ways that we get access to screeners, it's like, oh, I want to check that one out, or I wanted to see that. So like, maybe in the next week or two, more so than now, it's like I feel like there's going to be a lot to watch.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
everything's back in January. All the TV shows are like
Right.
Yeah.
back in January, and a lot of that,
True.
in terms of like screeners we have access to. I kind of did a quick scan the other day, and it was like, oh wait, not only is this about to come out, but we have 6 or 7
Yeah.
episodes of it to
Right.
watch.
Yeah.
I at some point we'll catch up, I guess, on some of those recent shows we've been watching, because there really is a lot of stuff coming back right now. I don't know when we'll actually be able to talk about it in any kind of specifics kind of way.
Yeah.
But like I just watched the whole final season of Search Party on HBO Max, and that was fun to see that it was out, and to see that, I mean, like, that's a show that I kind of got into last year and watched all 4 seasons kind of in a flurry. And so it was great to see it wrap up, but also it was great to be able to kind of binge that too. I was a little surprised that they did the full 10 all at once, but I didn't know. Is that how it's come out in the past, or was it a week-to-week thing before?
What HBO Max has been doing is dropping 2 or 3 episodes a week, which seems to be the pattern. But it's pretty cool that they just dropped it in our laps for Search Party. Mm-hmm. I guess they figure that's how people had been kind of on it before. You know, it was like two seasons in before it went to HBO Max, or maybe 3.
Yeah. I think it was 2.
Yeah, and I think that because they see that people were intaking it like that, I guess they figure that they try that model with this last season of the show. That's cool, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It is interesting, like when you mentioned that the way that HBO Max and some of the other streamers are doing the same thing, but like even like what they did with like Station 11, you know, the way that they've kind of like released like pairs of episodes.
Like
yes.
chunks, yeah.
Yeah. Like it's like 3 and then it's 2 and then it's 1
Yeah.
or, you know, whatever the pattern was. But I don't know if that it's, you know, to get into the nuts and bolts of it. Like, I don't know if that's to meet any kind of deadlines for like eligibilities for like Emmys and stuff like that. But I mean, like a show like Station 11, for example, you know, which is like a big show for HBO Max.
Yeah.
And a pretty well received one that's like people are talking about. You know, the way they decided to kind of do that with that show and a number of other shows.
Did you finish it?
No, I have not finished. I'm on like episode 8, I think.
Okay.
But I'm really liking that show. But it's just
Yeah.
interesting that like I don't know what the rhyme and reason of like what they do with that show versus like and just like that, you know, where they're doing like an episode a week.
Yeah.
You know, or like what is the like what is the or like what did they do with Righteous Gemstones? Like the first 2 episodes came out and then they're gonna do like 1 a week. Or Euphoria, you know, like that's just 1 a week. It's just like I'm very curious what the logic is between that when you have a show like Station 11, which is like a big prestige show, which will be a show that probably gets like Emmy awareness and Emmy consideration. I like to do it like that.
I wonder if it has to do with like I think there's levels of prestige, and because it's taken on like a sci-fi sort of thing, I think it needed these episodes to explain what was going on. I honestly don't know if I could have
That's true.
because we had the pleasure, thank you so much HBO, of having all of them, and I kind of took it all down as soon as I could and fucking balled on the last episode, by the way. Yeah, I think that requires you to have more pieces of the puzzle versus like, you know, and just like that, you're going to be like, oh, okay, well, Carrie did this week versus what is the mystery of this apocalyptic situation?
Right.
I definitely think that's true in a sense, Ronald, in that also that Sex and the City is sort of a relic of that earlier era of appointment television too.
Yeah.
And weekly television. So I would almost see them saying like, we're not going to change our paradigm with this flagship series, you know, that obviously they wanted a lot of hype around. But I think the other thing is too, I do think it's very much what you said, especially in the beginning of a new show or of a new take on something. They want you to be able to get to the end of that block and know what's going on. And sometimes first episode of a new show is still not there. And I think it used to be that a pilot episode was sort of required to have all of it in that, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
But now I think there are some shows that come out where they just know with this new way that people watch things, where they might not watch it week to week. They might catch it later and watch it like you know, in a binge or whatever. I think that there's less pressure on that pilot episode to be sort of like, here's the show encapsulated. But I think that when even HBO puts something out, they want to go, we don't really want people to end this big night of this debut going, oh, I guess I don't know what this show is yet. So sometimes they give you that second or even third episode so that by the time you get to the end, you'll feel oriented. But then when they go to the one a week model, it feels a little bit like, well, now you slowed down too much. You spoiled me, and then you slowed it down. Not HBO, obviously, but It's Always Sunny this season was a 2 every week.
Yeah.
They burned, I think, 8 episodes in 4 weeks.
It's crazy.
And it made sense sometimes. Like, oh, they did sort of feel like there was more of a continuing storyline this season, so it made sense. But it also made that season feel super short that I couldn't believe that it was over. I felt like it was a pretty complete story, but the very next week, I was a bit disappointed that I didn't have another hour of those maniacs. So
Same here.
Good stuff, by the way. I thought it was a pretty cool season.
Yeah, very good season.
I need to check it out.
I feel like this is a really interesting topic, and I think that maybe we should come back to this, because the more I think about it, it just seems like it's like the wild, wild west. Like
it
in
is.
Terms of, and I think that a big factor that the more I think about it is I think that some networks just have such a bottleneck of content from the last 2 years, and like you're saying, there's certain levels of things in terms of what they think is prestige or commercial, or critical, whatever, darling type shows. Like, I feel like, they have so much stuff in the pipe ready to go that some of it, they're like just opening the dam and letting it out, like Search Party, or a show that finishes its run in 4 weeks.
Or bigger things.
What?
Or bigger things.
What do you mean?
Did you hear the news about Turning Red?
Oh yeah.
Oh, like Pixar, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's weird. I mean, this is the third.
Well, that's
big
a whole
film.
another subtopic. Is like, what are they doing to Pixar?
What are they doing, man?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's all. I mean,
what kind of movies is Pixar making too? I guess.
I think it's also like just, but I mean, I think that's a consistent thing though. Is that like back to the TV thing just briefly? Is like I think about a lot of shows I've been watching, like Showtime. I think is in like a really nice run right now, where they have like some really great programming, with Dexter and with Yellowjackets, and they have that super pumped anthology series coming out next month about with Joseph Gordon-Levitt about, it's going to be like an anthology series about like these business, like the first one's about Uber basically, and like these businesses that kind of broke the mold or kind of like are game changing products or services. But Showtime is doing it the traditional thing, like they have one episode every week.
Yeah.
And they've kind of stick to that for
so
pretty
we call
much
the Boba
everything.
Fett model.
Well, yeah, the Boba Fett model. And maybe that's because they don't have like the pipeline that HBO with Warner content or like Disney or Hulu even has. And I don't know, it's just interesting. But yeah, the Pixar thing is a good point. I mean, I personally, I mean, I don't know, like I feel like I get the criticism of it, and like it is weird that it's the Pixar films that keep going to Disney Plus.
Exclusively to Disney Plus. Like bypassing theatrical entirely, isn't that right?
Yes. But I think the more I think about that though, it seems like they're leveraging the Pixar films, which seem to have more of a family reach than some of the Disney animation films, as like Disney Plus subscriber bait, basically.
Right.
Like that would be, those titles might attract or entice more subscribers to the service that weren't already there.
Yeah.
Than like a Disney animation movie, like I don't know, like Encanto or Raya or things like that that have come out like in theaters and on the service.
So how do you feel about the idea that like
We should explain, if in case people don't know,
Sure.
Turning Red, the new Pixar movie, just got announced to be going. It was supposed to be theatrical and eventually Disney Plus, and now they've just announced it's going Disney Plus. And what we're talking about is this is the third Pixar film in a row for that to happen to.
Soul, Luca, and then this movie. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the issue that I have with it, and I love watching stuff at home, is I'm a little afraid that if they're like Soul, Luca, these are incredible films, right? Turning Red, I'm assuming is going to have the same prestige, right? What if the person watching it starts to develop this thing where like whenever anything comes out now, because 3 huge films are on Disney Plus, that they're like Buzz Lightyear comes out and they're just like, wait till that shit gets on Disney Plus, rather than having a theatrical experience and going to see it. But I don't know.
Right. Well, we don't even know what. I mean, it's crazy that this is now we're going into our 3rd year of saying we don't know what the theatrical experience is going to look like 6 months from now. I mean, I'm exaggerating. This is, but I mean, like this is.
You really don't. Really don't know.
It's been a long time since we've had that sense of like, oh yeah, that's how people are going to take in their movies, and that's the way we all agree is the best way to do it. And everybody's doing it as soon as they can. That model has been changed. Like, I think people have already been conditioned a little bit. Even the people that want to go see stuff when it comes out. Well, I mean, I'm talking to a couple of them right now. I've probably been to more movies in the theater than the two of you. Steve, you've been to a couple more than Ronald. But I mean, this whole thing of like, what is that whole thing like? Ronald, you'd be going to movies all the time if it felt like it was back to normal,
I live so much closer now
since you've done that. So I guess I'm just saying, think about what that means. We don't have to be theoretical with it. We're not talking about some made-up person. We're talking about you. You would be hitting the movies probably a couple times a week if it weren't like dangerous to your health or to, the health of people around you. So anyway.
Yeah, it's a strange thing, and you wanna have those experiences, but then you have weird things like, the window being smaller for movies and being able to get access to a lot of those films that we couldn't, let's say, see at a festival. Like I just got The Infinite 30 Seconds or Infinite 2 Minutes, Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes, the Japanese film that I kind of championed. I got a copy of that. It's like, that is crazy that, you wait a little while and then eventually it comes out on PVOD, and it's dangerous and weird. And I'm closer to the theater than I've ever been. It's a very short drive for me now because of where I live. And I'm still, opting out of it. And I mean, for the most part, we've opted out of some pretty huge screenings that we could have gone to. All 3 of us. I mean, even with you going, you haven't gone to as many movies as we could have.
I mean, that's the irony. We haven't gone to any basically of these press things like
Scream. We missed it all.
Passing on Scream last night broke my heart.
I could imagine.
Like not being able to go or not being comfortable going to see that last night. Like it's one of my all-time favorite movies, and it was in the Dolby screen and it was press only. Oof. Even at that, I wasn't fully comfortable going. To be honest,
the buzz is pretty good on this one too.
Yeah,
I know. I can't wait to eventually see it.
Yeah.
But you're right, though. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. The times have changed, man. They're changing, and they're going to change even more once. I mean, the longer this kind of ebbs and flows, where you hit these, we're new normal, and then it's like, oh, well, no, not anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Spider-Man has a window to come out. Scream may have an opportunity, but beyond Scream, pretty much everything has been pushed now to the end of February, March, theatrically. Right. So what are theaters doing? And that may also be part of the decision why Turning Red went to Disney Plus, like if they're thinking that theaters aren't going to be back up and, supported by February, March, like, okay, let's support our over-the-top service.
Yeah. I kind of have this like feeling that's been in my head that I've been trying to like articulate more and more. I think even with the feelings that people have, I think we should try. I mean, we don't do this, obviously. The 3 of us don't do this, but don't try to shame people because they want to go to the theater. If they're living safely, if they're doing it safely, let them live.
I have felt pretty distanced every time I've gone to a screening. I've been to see some things within a couple days of coming out, but you pick a non like peak hour screening, you get a seat kind of in the corner, you look at the seating chart as much as you can.
That's the only times
you reserve the right to move around in the theater once you see how many people are actually there. I mean, the Spider-Man screening I went to was pretty crowded, but that was definitely the peak of, are we back at this? Like that little pop we had. I think we already knew, but there was this little pop of like, let's all just go see Spider-Man before we say no more.
Yeah.
But
Pretty much.
yeah, Spider-Man, Everybody Go Home should have been the name of the movie.
I pre-ordered that movie, man.
Cool.
Because since I couldn't see it the way that Steelbook, Best Buy exclusive. Can't wait. They haven't released a date or anything, but yeah, I'm glad you got to have that experience, man.
Also, The Eternals is out for you guys to see now, right?
I saw it on.
I want to watch. Oh, you did? Well, are we going to get into talking about stuff or what?
Yes.
Let's talk about some things we've seen. Maybe let's talk about Eternals next week after Steve's got a chance to see it.
Yes, that sounds good. Did you finish Dexter, Steve?
I did.
You guys talk about Dexter because I'm a passenger on this one.
Are you our dark passenger?
I'm sort of a medium gray passenger. As you can see, I have a bit of gray.
What'd you think of Dexter, Ronald?
I hate the term course correction. I think it's so corny. I think that people fucking throw that shit around too much. But this wasn't course correction to me. This felt like it was looking at the ending of the original and still tacking a very extraordinarily amazing story at the end of it. Man, there was a scene, Steve. I used to get, when Dexter first started, there was this sense of like dread when things would happen. There was a sense of dread. That was a scene that had nothing to do with Dexter and everything to do with the environment, like people discovering things in the environment that broke my heart, that took me in places where I didn't expect. That, like, I didn't think that Dexter was capable of doing this anymore. And just for that alone, for its last magic trick, to do this the way that it did it and end it the way that it did, man, Michael C. Hall, you deserve a hug. And the writing staff, like, it was amazing. Amazing. I love the ending. What'd you think?
Yeah, no, I really liked it too. I feel like my only criticism is like, I feel like the back half of the season felt very rushed compared to like the pacing on the first few episodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is like we mentioned this a few podcasts back, like where I was like, it felt like after episode 3 or 4, it really like stepped up in terms of pace.
Yeah.
And I think that'd probably be the only thing, because like once you get into the last 2 episodes, like a lot happens.
Yes.
Which felt a little breakneck for me. And like I feel like I would have liked to had a little more of that cat and mouse element that the show used to do so well and did a lot better this season than the old season finale, the one that everybody dislikes so much, as do I. But in general, though, like I feel like this show, this comeback was way better than it probably had any business being. Like I feel like, it lost a lot of love, when it went out the way it did. And to hear that it's like Showtime's most watched show now, and I don't know what's happening with the show going forward. I think it does feel like a very satisfying ending to the story. But who knows what they'll do? I mean, I hesitate to believe that they'll leave something alone that just got them the most viewings of any show on Showtime. But maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, I really liked it. I thought, the cast was great. I loved the whole what was the name of the town that in the show, like Little something, or like I just like the town, like how small it felt, and it kind of just makes the idea of like hiding in that kind of world, a serial killer who kills serial killers hiding in a small town like that, even more claustrophobic, and I think that worked really well for the show. But yeah, I thought the Dexter New Blood, this new season, was pretty great actually.
Cool.
Yeah. Also want to give a quick shout out. I don't know if you guys watched any of Yellowjackets yet.
Yes.
Just the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, I've mentioned it before in the podcast, but like this is a show that definitely, another Showtime show that's kind of swelling every week, kind of growing, and you see it kind of people talking about it more and more every week. But I'm loving this show. I think if you're interested at all in the premise, the cast, or just the nostalgia for the 90s, it's definitely worth checking out. Also on Showtime. And if you like the show, I want to give a good recommend to the curated Spotify playlist that they update every Sunday when the new episode drops.
Oh wow!
It's like the best 90s music, like that. I mean, it's everything that I've loved
That's cool.
in my time in the 90s, and I think like the music supervisor and some of the artists, like they're all involved in curating this Spotify playlist that they update every week. So yeah, it's awesome. But the show is great as well. So I think it's got like 2 or 3, maybe 2 episodes left or 3 episodes left.
Yeah.
But that would be a recommend for me as well.
Yeah, we should definitely double back and do a segment when we've all seen the full season of that, I think, just because it does feel like it's kind of hit that. I guess it was Squid Game, earlier. Like there's this, you just can tell when a show has hit the
Yes.
It's got the memes and it's got all the references and stuff. I saw maybe the first 3 or 4. I was into the 4th one or something, but I just had to stop because there was too much going on, not because I wasn't into the show. I think that everything you said, the cast is so strong. It's fun to see these actors get a chance to do this kind of material. The fact that it's such a woman-driven storyline, I don't know. It's like it doesn't wear that on its sleeve too much, but I do think it's worth mentioning that this is just such a rich. It's got such a diverse cast of characters, and it's just all over the place morally. And I don't know. I just think it's there's a reason why this show's got its hooks in people, because it really is like a kind of you don't want to look, but you can't look away kind of premise. And I guess
I think they also announced the 2nd season for it too.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I was wondering about that. It feels like a story that could be heading towards like a conclusion, but obviously you can see how they're going between timelines. So there's this thing of like you can see the things that maybe they're leaving unexplored that are whole possibilities of like mysteries that they don't address. It's not like Lost exactly, but it will remind you of that format where it's just like you get to do that overlapping of someone's actions in the past with who they are now or who they're trying to be now. That's always kind of interesting to me. So, let's let's talk about a movie that we've probably all seen. And I guess now this movie, this is one I'm interested in talking to you guys about, because there's the movie and there's the discourse about the movie. And sometimes the movie and the discourse about the movie start to blend together in my head, and I don't know. I need to untangle my feelings, and I need help. Everyone's seen Don't Look Up, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what do you, I mean, let's maybe take a step back and just talk about Adam McKay's trajectory into this more like politically aware part of his career, where he's done The Big Short and Vice and then this. As opposed to that run of Anchorman, Talladega Nights, Step Brothers, The Wrong Guys.
Yeah.
I don't know. There is I can see a lot of similarities, but in terms of like just the loose film style that I think was so appealing in his comedies, and I don't know if I've quite grasped yet what I think of him as like a serious filmmaker, but I always am excited to see what he'll do, and I think he's a really interesting guy. And I think opinions on this movie, Don't Look Up, this new satire, were so like not just divisive, but there were people who were like, it's that thing of it's like the dress. Is it blue or is it gold kind of thing, or is it blue and gold, or is it white and I don't even remember what the colors on the damn dress were, but the reference I'm making. It was like some people were going, "Oh, this movie is lacking in comedy and is so condescending to all people," and then other people saying, "No, this movie was hilarious and relatable to me." So I don't know. Where do you stand on Adam McKay, the serious filmmaker, and what did you think of his chops in putting together this satire, Don't Look Up?
I prefer the not so political Adam McKay, if I'm being honest. I think I'm really looking forward to the Lakers miniseries, and I think that might be a combination of the two, right? But
he's doing a miniseries with what? Do we know who's involved?
Oh, it's based on a book about the Lakers, about the '80s into the '90s Lakers, like like Magic.
Yeah, someone needs to give a little spotlight to that.
Yeah. So that's what happened with the Will Ferrell thing. Like that was the reason why the last straw of them being friends, right?
Yes.
Will Ferrell not being cast in that movie. I mean, in that
or sort of seemingly being soft cast and then having it kind of yanked away when they were going in a different direction. But Will Ferrell is clearly trying to be moving into a more serious phase himself, so I could see how that would be a particular thing. I could see how coming from Adam McKay that would bother him.
So about the movie itself, I have to be completely honest, man. The way that people talk now, I don't know if this feels so much like a heightened parody anymore.
Right.
Like that's not the thing anymore. Like it used to be like people always reference what's the one where Zeus not Zeus. becomes media idiocracy. Like people always reference that as like that's the marker. Back in the day, they're like, a wrestler could become a president. All that stuff.
Right. And or Doctor Strangelove. I feel like those are the two movies that you hear people refer to as like satires that, especially now in retrospect, feel like they were saying something. Whereas at the time, Idiocracy was kind of I think it's got a cult appeal, but I think it's interesting how people look back on these movies more fondly than they maybe are received in their moment.
And I think that like this doesn't feel like a parody anymore so much as it feels like a documentation of how wild this could get if we don't look at these like kind of mile markers as things get more and more insane. So I wasn't as bothered by it as everybody else was in that respect. But what I do get bothered about is like a message stepping on your story. I get a little irritated by that, where like everything's like a scene and somebody's like, message. You should have saw that. That's because people are dumb. That's the thing. You don't know that because people are dumb and they're going to interpret this that way. And they're going to it's just like, come on, man. Like, just tell me a story that can involve these elements. And that is what Adam McKay seems to be failing at to me. Like, that is the shortcoming, is nuance to this stuff. Like, you can still have something that's heightened and still have the message be a little more nuanced about how America's headed and what we're facing and, what's the worst case scenario. And that's the part that bothered me.
Well, I mean, it's that old joke that people make now of like, it's hard to make jokes anymore because the real world is so fucked and bizarre, and that it does take a lot for a movie like this to seem like it's over the top. And, and I think some, I don't know. I feel like half the cast comes off really well, and then the other half feel like they don't quite know what the tone of the thing they're in is. But I think that happens a lot of times when you have a movie like this. What did you think about these things, Steve? Not just Adam McKay, but his latest.
I like the movie. It's probably like not my favorite Adam McKay film. I do think it's probably the most. I do agree with kind of where Ronald was going before. Like, I feel like the whole movie feels a little too heavy-handed and just like a constant message. I think the overall message I kind of identify with, and I'm on board with what it's trying to say. I personally felt like watching it though that you kind of get distracted from a bit of the story once you know the story and you see where the story is going with all of these kind of like opportunities to just comment on basically every facet of how polarized everything is and how divisive everything can be. And, and I mean, but again, like that's kind of fucking the world that we're in right now. I mean, like, right. I feel like it feels it's a little too close for home, but I think this movie might have some play, like, come awards time, maybe for screenplay or something. But I just think that, like, when you have a cast like that, even if you just kind of focus on the main cast, I think most of that works pretty well in the movie. Some of the casting is like, I don't know. I usually like Mark Rylance. I feel like he was a little off in this. And
he was kind of doing a parody of his character in Ready Player One, which is very strange. Yes. Different hair, but like a slightly more spaced out guy than that guy.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing.
I like the joke, though, of an idiot billionaire who thinks that he's where he is because of how smart he is and doesn't realize it's just because he can bankroll all this stuff.
Right.
I think that, but I do think that, like, I think we're getting at something here that, like, the tone is a little bit all over the place. Like, it does have that seriousness and sometimes that heavy-handedness. I don't know, sometimes I welcome when a movie, like, slaps people in the face a little bit, but I do think this movie was almost one note in that sense. And I think that's why people were reacting to it the way they did, because if there had been these hilarious comic set pieces that you remember, I think you would be forgiving some of the kind of slapdash quality of it. I mean, I got a little tired of people acting like if you didn't like the movie, you didn't agree with the message. I feel like I'm 100% there with the message. But a lot of people were saying stuff like, oh, I can see how if people don't care about the climate crisis, they might not get this movie. And it's like, trust me, that's not what it is,
Yeah.
But I actually felt like there were moments where it felt kind of sloppy, like the way it would cut to file footage or stock footage and go back into the story. Some of that felt like it was trying to create like a media kaleidoscope, like Natural Born Killers or something like that. But I don't think that it felt as just didn't feel as polished stylistically as I think it would have needed to pull off all those shifts. But I don't know if I quite understand the anger of people saying, "Oh, this movie is such a waste of time." Surely they've seen less funny films than that. I do think though that you kind of want more laughs. And when I watch Search Party, the fifth season of that, it's 10 roughly half-hour episodes, so it's like a 5 to 6 hour movie. That's a satire, and it goes crazy. I mean, like if you compare the last episode of Search Party to the first, they're two different worlds. It's gone from being this grounded story to being this wacky, over-the-top story. But I will say, I was thinking watching Search Party, it's like, oh, this is maybe what I was missing from Don't Look Up in terms of that satire. It's kind of what you both were alluding to. It's like those funny characters that get caught in these moments that you can relate to, these over-the-top scenarios that might go, I mean, like go crazy, and just stuff that's like, okay, this is no longer relatable, but you're still, I feel like Search Party still feels like it's very much about our current moment and how self-absorbed people can be. It just takes it to this next insane level. So not to say that everything should be like something else, and I'm not trying to make Don't Look Up into a movie it's not trying to be, but I think that's when I think, oh, good funny satire, like Dr. Strangelove. A lot of people don't like that movie, but if you watch it, you can't deny that it's got these crazy memorable characters and these performances that are like heightened. People are doing something to show that they're in the world of the movie, and I think that's why something like Don't Look Up, the best performances are the people who do have a couple moments where they get to kind of, like Jonah Hill has some funny moments because he gets to be kind of the tip of the spear of just how silly, like they're making a comment about a particular type of person, and he gets to kind of go to the nth degree with it. And I think Leo has some nice moments too of just melting down in the face of people who won't listen. Because we know that's a little bit of who Leo is, but we also know we've all felt that frustration, and we've particularly have seen like Dr. Fauci sitting there, listening to some politician speak, and you can see him just shaking his head. Like, I feel like that stuff had this comic verve to it that I just don't know that the movie quite stitched it all together, because it's very knowing.
You're right.
As you said, Ronald, it kind of touches on every aspect. It touches on the memes. It touches on the social media. It tries to do so much. I think if it had just been a little more skillful in doing it, I would have been like just enraptured by it. As it was, though, I sort of felt like I was a little worn out by it by the time it got to the end, honestly. And it was only after all this chatter that I've been like, maybe I should go back and watch it a second time when I'm not like, because I think I watched it like Christmas evening, and so everyone's a little tired on Christmas evening. Maybe I should have watched something lighter. But I didn't hate it. So I guess I'm kind of caught in the middle. I find it equally bizarre that people are like, oh my gosh, this movie kept me up for a week because of what it showed us about the world. And I kind of feel like maybe I'm just a cynical Gen Xer, but this is the fucking world, baby. I mean, like I feel like. But I also think that's part of what the movie does that is maybe a pressure release valve for people, is to see a movie that actually does have that much venom and that much resentment of stupidity, It is a little condescending at times, perhaps, but maybe that's, perhaps, I don't know. It's okay for a movie to do that. But yeah, not my favorite Adam McKay either. What is your favorite Adam McKay?
Probably Step Brothers for me, I'd say. For me.
Anchorman.
I get,
that's tough, man.
Good.
I'm just an Anchorman devotee. I've seen it too many times, and it still holds up to not feel like, even though I know that certain things about it have aged awkwardly, I believe, but I think also that cast, you kind of can't beat the moment they caught Paul Rudd in, the moment they caught Steve Carell in. David Koechner was kind of like, it was at peak David Koechner. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Those are great. I mean, if I did maybe to give attention to something else, I mean, I love The Big Short. Like,
it's a great movie.
And he won an Oscar for that. So, I mean, I feel like, obviously I love Step Brothers, and that's one that's grown over time for sure, the more I watch it. But,
Did we just become best friends?
Yup. Yeah. It's super quotable. But yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of his. Like, I will see everything he puts out. And I did like this movie. I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. But I did enjoy it, and I probably will watch it again. And important to note that probably maybe by the time this podcast comes out, if not the next podcast episode, it'll probably be Netflix's biggest movie of all time, which is, the discourse around it that you're just, that we're describing, and people are talking about it and people are watching it. You have an amazing cast like that. And I think as of now, it's number 2 behind Red Notice, but I think they're projecting by this weekend or next week, it'll surpass Red Notice, and be the biggest Netflix release of all time, which is Crazy.
That is crazy.
Crazy.
Wowie
I mean,
zowie.
that's great. It's great. It is kind of like, it's so easy to lose like context sometimes. Like there's lots of criticism about Netflix, and then you know, a lot of their original films in terms of like the quality of some of them. I feel like there are some great ones, and you know, I think you can say that about any studio, and I just kind of see them the same way personally. But like, it is kind of bonkers to think about how many people watch these movies, you know, like in just terms of the reach and the number of subscribers that they have. You know, even a movie like The Lost Daughter that's kind of becoming more and more popular because it came out on Netflix, you know, last week or the week before, Maggie Gyllenhaal's film. Like, there's no way in hell that movie would be seen by 1/10, 1/20th of the number of hours that they've already posted that movie's been watched. If it had come out like, you know, a traditional rollout in, you know, art house theaters or whatever. So, I mean, it's just crazy to think about the scope of how far some of these movies reach. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I always like, I mean, I'm always aware of it, especially because they have that new website that we always talk about. But like, and I check it all the time when they release their new numbers every week. And that just blows my mind that like a movie like The Lost Daughter is like, you know, in the top 3 Netflix movies, you know, like 100,000 hours viewed, you know, it's like, or how, whatever that metrics they use is. But I mean, that's just, that global reach is just wild.
It is, man.
You know, real quick, I wanted to mention one more movie before I forget, mainly because we're talking about Netflix, and it came out like a month or two ago. I finally got around to seeing Tick, Tick, Boom. Did either of you see that?
Oh, no, not yet.
Not yet.
You guys need to watch this movie. Like, this movie's fantastic. And Andrew Garfield is phenomenal in it. The music is great. Like, I'm aware of Jonathan Larson and even of Tick, Tick, Boom, but I really don't know that I fully understand or understood the you know, kind of its place in his history and you know, in his career. But you know, Lin-Manuel Miranda directs this film. It's his feature debut as a director, and it's I mean, does a great job. The direction's great, songs are great, the choreography's awesome. But I was really surprised. Like, I don't know why, but I mean, like, I just had come late to it. But this movie's probably making my top 10 if we do the top 10 this year, depending what else I see. But Andrew Garfield's like my front runner for best actor. Like, he's phenomenal in this movie, especially with the love we've been giving him for the whole, you know, Spider-Man of it all. Like,
he's having a moment.
He's having a moment, and I think it's going to help him. He might win an Oscar for this movie. He is outstanding in Tick, Tick, Boom. And I'd really, really recommend you guys checking it out.
He's always really good.
Yeah, he's
so
always
good. He's so
That's
good.
the thing that everybody has been kind of saying. Like,
Yeah.
haven't we all agreed forever that he like has got? And even my son, who's like a super Tom Holland as Spider-Man fan, he's been going around. I mean, like it's like it's torn his allegiances a little bit because he's like. Because he's a comics fan and a movies fan, and he kind of will say it's like, Dad, Andrew Garfield is actually maybe the best comic, like he's the best version of Spider-Man we've gotten. Anyway, right. I think, and I know that's just one part of it, but yeah, he's always been like solid in things. I think it's very strange that some actors, I mean, it's cool when it happens because you notice that everyone suddenly appreciates him, but it's strange when certain actors, people don't add it up. Like they're in one good thing after another, and people aren't saying this person's really good. But yeah, now he's having that. So
yeah.
Well, I wanted to mention something because you mentioned The Lost Daughter, and it made me think. Oh yeah, Olivia Colman. She's a badass these days. She's in all lots of cool stuff. Has anyone watched Landscapers on HBO Max? What a weird show. Okay, well,
I want to watch it. I haven't started it yet.
It's very strange. It's like really interesting and really strange and very dreamlike. And I do think you kind of have to take a step back from it sometimes. But I just don't think I've ever seen anything like it in some, it's, you know, and it almost is able to pull off what it does with like a cinematic quality. It still feels a little television, and you can feel it kind of stretching at the bounds of what they can do budgetary wise. But as far as like David Thewlis and Olivia Colman being like just top of the heap actors, they just there's so much nuance to every little thing that they're doing. I guess I'm just waiting for someone else to watch it so I can say it's almost a You Were Warned. It's almost weird enough to be a You Were Warned because it's just structurally it goes in and out of fantasy and the real world so much, and it's kind of an interesting take on a true crime story because you sort of end it feeling like you know what happened, but the show didn't show you what happened in such a way that you feel like you saw it happen.
Right.
So it's like you don't feel like, you know how sometimes true crime stories can give you the illusion that you saw what happened because they showed it to you in just plain terms. This show kind of avoids giving you that easy relationship to the crime, and it's more about like the fractured mindset of the people that are accused. So I don't know. It's really interesting. Maybe it should have been a movie and not a 4-hour series, but still, I kind of half recommend it.
Yeah, check it out. I have to check it out. What else?
What else did we see?
I want to mention 2 movies. One was a Netflix film that my friends had been telling me to see it because of my love for stand-up and this artist as a director, as a comedian, as a musician. Bo Burnham's Inside is a fucking masterpiece.
Yeah.
It is odd and sad and fun and dips between those things so magically that it feels like you're inside of the apartment with him, kind of feeling the feelings that he's feeling. And we've all during the course of the pandemic felt like every emotion shown on the screen. It's pretty damn cool. Did we talk about? I feel like maybe. John, did you mention it before or something?
I don't know. I mean, I think there was that time when everybody was talking about it, but I somehow feel like we managed to not mention it on the show. But yeah, I saw it back in the midst of pandemic. But it definitely was having there was a time where I felt like everybody was saying, "Oh my gosh, has anyone seen this?"
Yes.
But yeah, it definitely in that moment felt like it really responded to I don't know. I think he found his creative way of doing something memorable within that confines of what we all were going through. So
yeah, so that was pretty damn good. And the next one, I think the title is named what it is because if you haven't seen it, come on, you need to see this fucking film. Come on, with Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh yeah.
And this little British kid doing a fucking American accent, a tour de force this kid is putting on. I've never I don't think I've ever felt this sort of lived in besides I guess maybe the Bo Burnham movie, but it's about a journalist that travels around and he does it just through a mic and some headphones and there's a portion of the film where he has to take care of his kid because his mom is going through some stuff. And it plays around with sound a lot. So to keep the kid busy, this isn't giving anything away. To keep him kind of busy during the course of the movie, he gives him the mic and the headphones. And you can just hear what's in the kid's ear for portions of the movie. Mm-hmm. So you just hear atmosphere in New York. It was just all the sounds and the people talking, the banter and the feet touching the ground. It's just all these things that I remember doing in college. And, when you do a interview with a teacher that you were scared to interview, and they're like, you gotta record some atmosphere to make it sound good when you record it. You just gotta put it in a corner. You just gotta sit there. You tell everybody to be quiet. You just go I just remember those feelings and this relationship that he has with this kid that feels like a father-son dynamic, and it's really just an uncle nephew relationship. It's magical. It's really I haven't seen anything like it, and because it's black and white, it really almost looks like a canvas. It feels like it takes away all the distraction, and all you can do is focus on the dynamic between Joaquin Phoenix and whoever's on the screen at the time, or this little kid and whoever's on the screen at the time. And he's so charismatic, man. I want to meet this kid. But come on. A24, up to no good again. You're up to no good. We still need to do the list. I keep saying this.
Oh, speaking of A24, the Tragedy of Macbeth is A24.
What did you think? I need to know.
I mean, like, I guess I was gonna like. I think this is an interesting question, just because, like, how do you do with Shakespeare? You know, because
Right.
there's no. You don't want to make Shakespeare not Shakespeare, right? But you do know that that's a barrier to entry for a lot of people. So
Right.
you're gonna have imagery in a movie like this, and acting that's really great, and like it really does feel. It's so. I was so captivated just I was interested in it. Like Joel Cohen for the first time directing a movie without Ethan Cohen. Um, Oddly, Ethan Cohen has is focusing on theatrical works right now, like writing plays, while
Oh,
Joel
wow.
goes off and adapts a play into a movie. It's just an interesting thing.
Right,
But Joel
right.
Cohen said in an interview that Ethan wouldn't have been interested in doing this, and that's why he did it when they were kind of taking a break from each other, because he knew that this was something he wanted to do that Ethan would never be interested in. And I don't know why that is. Ethan doesn't like Shakespeare, or just doesn't want to deal with so much. There's so much on you if you're going to do Shakespeare, because you have to do the dialogue. You know, I mean, you can't like you could maybe say, I'm going to adapt it. I'm going to do my adaptation of Shakespeare and take all the poetry out of it. And people try that kind of stuff all the time, but I still feel like this the only way out is through, or the only way, whatever that saying is, you know, like the only way to do Shakespeare is to dive into Shakespeare. And this is adapted for the screen by Joel Cohen, so he truncates it and he changes a few things to make it work. And it's not a super long movie. It's not one of the longest plays. I don't know how you feel about Macbeth, but it's always been one of my favorite Shakespeare plays, just because it's a very cinematic kind of story. It's all about someone who's, you know, undone by the sort of moral rot that they have allowed to grow within themselves. So it's like we see a lot of, like, you know, explorations of crime and anti-heroes and stuff that deal with that idea. And Denzel is just on fire in this performance. Frances McDormand is really good. I think I expected to be more blown away by her as Lady Macbeth than I was ultimately, but I think there's a take on the character they're doing. She's a little bit distant and kind of chilly, and I guess that might be a Frances McDormand thing. But, you know, it is interesting to see something that is so clearly not a Coen Brothers project,
Right.
but it has so many earmarks of Coen-Z-ness. Sometimes the shot framings, sometimes a little bit of the rhythm, or it just makes you honestly realize, oh, wait a minute, I never would have thought of of Shakespeare as a major influence on the Coen Brothers. But now that I'm seeing a Coen treatment of Shakespeare, I realize how much the dialogue, the constantly talking characters, the people who are speaking their thoughts but maybe obscuring their thoughts at the same time, like that's very much rooted in this tradition of, you know, this play is 400 years old or something. So over 400. So yeah, I think it's really going to depend on how much you can love this movie. Is going to depend on how much you enjoy Shakespeare, how much you can kind of be bowled over by this movie and the sweep of it at least once. I think is going to depend on just how much you can sink into the imagery, because it's got this very minimalist, almost artificial look. Like the sets are very there's not an attempt to create an illusion of a real world. It feels like an extension of a stage world, but it also feels like very much like a kind of movie someone would have made 100 years ago, you know, like where they wouldn't have built out these giant sets and they wouldn't have extras everywhere and they wouldn't have all this stuff. It would be a little bit minimal. So it feels like a really bold visual statement. And yeah, I guess I'd be very, very interested to know what you guys think when you see it, especially based on whether I mean, I don't know. I don't think any of us are like super Shakespeare buffs. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But I mean, I've read enough of it and studied enough of it in school that I have an appreciation for a few plays. And I'm not one of those people who goes, oh, it's Shakespeare equals yawn. You know, that's not where I stand with it at all. But I find it's a lot to take in, you know, trying to figure out what's going on in a story and what people are saying, you know.
Right.
I almost always need the decoder ring to know what's really happening in a Shakespeare play.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I think maybe some familiarity with Macbeth would help somebody. But I think this movie does about as much as anybody ever has to sort of strip it down and make the dialogue feel like people talking and not like people just talking to thin air. So anyway. Yeah,
Cool.
I really dug it. And as far as visually, I mean, it's almost like it would be a good one just to put on, like on your screen or something, you know, when you're testing out your system, Ronald. I feel like this would be, there's something, it's so minimal and it's so artificial, and yet it's beautiful to look at. I think that, you know, the Coen brothers can do that. They can create these interesting textures with this super sharp clarity. And in some ways, it feels like the next mood piece after the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. It's like more abstract than that, but it does feel like the next movie. And I'm very intrigued now to think, like, does this mean now we're going to get a bunch of solo Joel Cohen movies, or are they going to come back together? I mean, there's
Sojo.
Sojo. Are we going to get
Sojo,
Sojos?
Sojo movies.
Soldiers?
Are we going to get Sojos or Cobros? Yeah.
Okay, I'll check it out, man. I've been wanting to see it, but since I've waited as long as I have, I'm just gonna watch it on Apple TV Plus when it's So yeah.
We could watch the screener. This was
I
the look on
know.
my face last week when I realized we've had access to that screener. I was like,
Right.
oh, wait a minute. The Coen Brothers, because I had that January 14th date in mind. That's when it hits Apple Plus.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, actually, we have screeners from Apple Plus, so that's when I realized that. I was overjoyed. But we also have there's also the Search Party, not the Search Party, the After Party.
Oh yeah, I've watched that. I watched that a couple times over.
And I know that you've fallen off, but I'm still on the hook with Servant, and I noticed the first 6 or 7 of those are up. So
I need to, yeah. Oh my God, I need to watch that.
When can we talk about the After Party? Because I feel like that's not for.
It doesn't start until like February or something like that, right?
But I mean, I think we can talk about it on the 28th or something. So
Okay, gotcha. How much of it have you watched?
I still have a couple left, but
Have you watched it at all, Steve?
I've watched the first episode.
What'd you think?
I wasn't as impressed as I thought I'd be with the first episode.
Well, when you
it
yes,
gets so much better after the first episode.
when you figure out what the show is, because they don't do it in the first episode.
I feel like what they do in the first episode is they
I read that
over-explain it.
You read what it is? Why did you read that? You can't do that.
No. Like I think I know what you're talking about. I mean, I read when they announced what the show was.
I think that's
Like-
part of the log line is that.
Yeah,
is-
it is that. Like it was out there what the
But I
show
thought,
was.
I guess we're getting into embargo territory here. But I'll just say,
Yeah.
I thought particularly Tiffany Haddish's character in the first episode, I found very tiresome because I thought she over-explained the concept of the show, like throughout
Yes,
the show.
yes.
Like I don't think we needed that much explanation to know that different people's accounts are going to have a different point
Feel
of
to-
view.
yeah.
But I think once we get into that world of the different accounts, it picks up. I thought it picked up a lot because after the first
pretty damn
episode, I was
cool.
kind of lukewarm too, and I was even saying to Nikki, "Boy, I hope they drop this thing of over-explaining the concept."
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
the second episode, they did, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then they have Ike Barinholtz carrying that one too. And
Ike is
that's,
so funny, man.
yeah.
Ike is a beast. But yeah, there's like 3 shows on there that haven't come out that I think we should probably start to take in. There's one with like Samuel L. Jackson. I don't know if you saw that. There's a ton of stuff. Apple went from having no content to having like maybe 50 something shows at this properties at this point.
It's ridiculous, yeah.
That's crazy. It's crazy. And people are doubting this whole thing. And now it's like you can't keep up if you try for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did any of you watch Matrix Resurrections?
Yeah.
Did we talk about that yet?
I think we did, but I don't think you had seen it.
But maybe briefly. Maybe I feel like we didn't go
I think
into
Ronald and I did like a segment.
Yeah,
just
that's
because,
right,
Just
that's
because
right,
we'd
that's
seen
right.
it, but you hadn't seen it yet. So do you
Right,
want to?
right.
Steve.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you guys. Like, I don't really have much. I couldn't remember if we talked about it or not. It was.
Steve, is it the Wachowskis? Is there only God forgives? It's Lana's. It feels so like combative. It feels so like I'm gonna ruin this franchise. Like these are the same people. I mean, even if you don't like the last 2 of the Matrix films, they are significantly better than the 4th movie. Like significantly, it's no comparison. Actually,
I think it's probably because it feels more. They feel more like of one.
yeah.
I don't know. Like my big takeaway, honestly, like, and this is probably gonna make me sound horrible, but like,
Oh no,
because I love him, but I felt like Keanu was not good in this.
he was.
I felt like he was very like
washed up. He felt like
Well, did I tell you somebody said he seemed like he was saving himself for John Wick 4?
absolutely my feelings.
You think that's what it
exactly
was?
what it felt like. Yeah, I mean, I feel like for it being a Matrix film, I felt like a lot of the stunt choreography and the fight choreography was very kind of meh. You know,
Yeah.
there's a couple great sequences in the movie, you know, that I thought were pretty amazing, but not consistent enough. And I mean, and as much as I love him in The Matrix, like the other three films, something just felt off like with him in this movie. And I mean, like, I feel like the movie really kind of comes alive when Carrie Ann Moss is like more involved in the movie.
Yeah.
And I think she really kind of is the bright spot of the movie for me. And kind of is what kind of kept me in it in the few moments that she's in it until like the last half hour of the movie. But yeah, I don't know. I was kind of disappointed in it, to be honest. And I just felt like it was very odd not having Hugo Weaving in the movie, not having some version of Lawrence Fishburne in the movie. I didn't really like what they did with Morpheus.
Yeah.
And
it didn't make sense that they didn't get Lawrence Fishburne to play that. I mean, I know they were doing something different. Whereas with Jonathan Groff, I at least was like, I can see how a new face for this guy almost makes him more nefarious, even though it's hard not to picture the alternate world where they just, schedules worked out and Hugo Weaving was doing that. Because it would have been thrilling to see
absolutely
the Agent Smith that we know doing those things. But I think Jonathan Groff was at least like a good choice to kind of match that sort of a different version, a more vapid, modern version of this kind of energy. But I just didn't, even though I like the actor that was playing Morpheus, it's like, I just didn't think that it needed to not be Lawrence Fishburne. Like, there didn't seem to be anything that he couldn't have done on wires or whatever they needed. And so I can only imagine that was a strange feeling for him to just not get the call.
I guess he decided to do MacGruber instead.
Yes.
yes.
But I mean, good decision on his part, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I love seeing that he's part of the gravitas. He's part of the joke of that show because of like what makes MacGruber sing for me is how straight everyone plays it.
Yeah.
Around this total dickhead that MacGruber is. I don't know. Have you guys finished the whole season of that?
Yeah.
We watched it with the family, so it was interesting sitting there with my son for some of that MacGruber stuff, like when he's begging Lawrence Fishburne to let him blow him so that he can get some information.
That's some quality family time right there.
It really is. But the stupidity of it, like, there's one thing that one of my son's favorite like things is something like, oh, that's so dumb. It's like high praise for him, if he's watching a comedy. And I think that, and we were all saying it, but my son just kind of pointed it out. It's like, he loves that the joke of that show is that MacGruber has this reputation that everybody seems to somehow fear and respect. And yet they all also see and are sure that he's an idiot, So it's like, you just have to, it's like the concept almost seems like it wouldn't work, but you get people like Lawrence Fishburne in there to play it almost completely straight. And somehow it's like, and that it ends. I don't know if I'll beep this out, but the fact that it ends with people doing the boot scoot boogie, I had to like sit there and just process that for about a half hour. It's like, I think only Will Forte would come up with something that gloriously stupid and then like execute it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the joke of this show is that someone actually filmed this. But that's Peacock, right? That was
No, Billy Zane is also having a good year, man.
No, I think, again, it's like you get to show that like, because he would play the villain in the serious version of this. You would see him in some direct-to-home video action movie or something like that, playing the bad guy. So it's like he's very in on the joke for doing this. I kind of want more with his character, actually.
Me too. He's fresh off that Kevin Hart show, man. He was like,
oh, that's right,
kind of an asshole in that. It's good to see him working. Yeah, but you're right. I wish I saw more of him too. He was funny. He was funny to watch. Yeah. What else? Right. What else have we been watching?
The close up of the butt cheeks in the opening credits.
Yes, I love it. The Bond parody is so good, man.
So I think that's all I got personally.
All right. You want to boot scoot out of here?
Yeah.
Boot scoot and boogie. You guys have anything else you want to mention? Any other shows that you've seen or movies you've seen?
I guess it can wait, whatever it is.
Okay.
Same for me.
Fine,
Same for me.
Okay.
We're back. we out here. Is that what Jonah Hill says?
Yeah.
So moviesmovie.com is the website. You can go there, jump off on whatever podcast platform you subscribe to. Maybe if you're just listening episode to episode, maybe subscribe, maybe leave a review, maybe leave a rating if it's even possible. If you're listening through Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Music, any of those things, Facebook even, we're on there now. You can listen right on Facebook as you're scrolling endlessly through your timeline. For those of you that are still using Facebook, you can do that. I don't know what our plan is for next week, but hopefully we'll be back next week. We'll go for a two in a row kind of thing. And we got to kind of plan something to go over some of our favorites of the year, I guess, eventually.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd like to do that, like maybe some TV stuff and some movie stuff.
Maybe we can kind of bang it out in one episode and move our lists along faster than we've done in the past.
Than we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's the later we get in the year that look, because we I don't think we did one for the last couple of years. Like this has been a while since we've had one of our best ofs.
Yeah,
I'm down, man. We should just do a best of episode with movies and TV and just kind of rattle them off. Don't get too caught up in it.
Right.
I'd like to make sure everybody knows, like, what some of our favorite stuff was, because now's the time to catch up. There's tons of stuff out there. So sorting through it with some recommendations would probably be good.
And now the stuff that we may have seen in the theater or may have seen in the festivals now coming on
it's all available.
Yeah, so this is a good time.
Hopefully.
It's a really good time.
So maybe we'll do that. Otherwise, good to see you guys. Hopefully we'll same time, same place next week. And
absolutely.
Yeah, man. All right, cool. Well, as always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.